Hello, and welcome to the SomerKnits podcast. My name is Summer, and this is where I like to share all about my knitting, spinning, and other fiber-related crafts. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new here, welcome. And if you are a returning viewer, welcome back, and thank you so much for your continued support. Let's dive right in. It is hot here, so I don't know how long I'll last in what I'm wearing. I may have to run change, but this is my second finished Tolsta tee. The yarn is Neon Confetti by Always Be Kind Yarns, and I used 3 skeins of her DK weight. I obviously made the sleeves longer than the pattern calls for. If you have been watching for a while, you might remember that originally I knit the first sleeve even longer, and it came down past the elbow and had a little bit of a balloon, and then I ran out of yarn. So on the second sleeve. So I had to rip back the first sleeve and kind of equalize the arms. And now I don't like the puff quite so much, and kind of wish I hadn't decreased at all. But this is the yarn I have left. So I'm not sure I would have made it through the ribbing on both sides if I hadn't done the decreases. Maybe I would have. I think it's 3 grams I weighed it. Or maybe it's like 2 and something and almost 3. That's just what seems to be sticking in my mind, is that it was close to 3 grams. But I'm not ripping the sleeves out again. So even though it bothers me now that the poof doesn't look quite the same as it did when the sleeve came down to here, it's done. And because it's a superwash yarn, I feel like it will stretch out over time. And I might appreciate the sleeves having the poof once they have elongated a bit. I have blocked it, but I didn't like pin it out. I did smooth it out, but I didn't like aggressively pin out the sleeves. So I could do that if I wanted to get more length from them. But I thought I'd try just wearing it for a while first and see how that went. I love the colors because it is wool. It is still very hot for it in Oklahoma. I think the high today is 96 or 97 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's very warm outside. I see this as being a great transitional season piece though, when it does start to cool off. But even more so, I see it for like next spring, when you're starting to feel spring in the air, but it's actually still relatively chilly, but you want those bright, happy spring colors. And we get a lot of that in Oklahoma, where it's like, it's going to be spring. Oh, just kidding. It's going to be cold for a while. Oh, it's going to be spring. Oh, just kidding. It's going to be cold for a while. And so I see this as being a great piece at that time. So I'm glad to have it in my wardrobe. I am glad to have it finished because it sat in the naughty corner for a while. But for those not familiar with it, I don't know who in the knitting world wouldn't be at this point, but this is the Tolsta tee by Rebecca Clow. This is my second one. It's such a modifiable pattern. I mean, she even sends a PDF with all kinds of ideas on how to modify it. I have already swatched for a third one, but I don't know when I'll cast that on because I have so many things going and so many things that I want to do. I'm already feeling a little overextended, maybe, but I don't know. That's okay. It's bringing me joy, and we'll go with that, right? It's too hot to have coffee or tea. And it's also too hot to speak for long periods of time without any water. I don't think I have any other finished objects that I still physically have. So I did a few more hats for friends of the kids, and I will insert pictures of those. I did a fawn hood for a friend of my daughter's, and that is a pattern by Heidi May, and it's knit in like super bulky yarn. I think the pattern maybe calls for size 15 needles and I use size 13 or something like that. I went down a needle size because I'm a very loose knitter, but these hoods kind of depend on their structure because this one has like antlers and ears, and in order for all those things to stand up the way they're supposed to, you need the fabric to have structure. So I went down a needle size from whatever the pattern called for to give it that structure and to get gauge, because honestly, I never get gauge on her patterns in the needle sizes that she does. But Heidi May's animal hoods and other patterns are a lot of fun. I find them pretty easy to follow. So like I said, hopefully I've inserted a picture by now. It was super cute. It was very much appreciated. So that made me happy. And that's all there is to say about that one. Like I said, a couple other hats for friends of the kids, and I have another hat on my needles that I'll show in just a little bit, but that's all I finished. I have started some things, and I have continued working on some of my bigger projects. Speaking of bigger projects, I have not shown you my temperature blanket in a while, so let's grab that. This temperature blanket is going to fit my king size bed, I think. So at the beginning of the year, I started a temperature blanket based on the excavation blanket pattern. If you've been around a while, I've shown it a few times. I don't show it every time because it grows slowly. And at this point, because I was on the widest part of the blanket, I am more than a month behind on days. I am just starting into August. So I think I've only done 2 days of August so far. Which isn't too bad, and I know I'll be able to catch up when I get to the shorter days of fall. So if you haven't been here, I have been marking the months with progress keepers. So I started in January on the 1st, and so this would be January, and then this section is February, and I was just kind of curious to see how the months ended up looking. So then we have March, April, May, June, and July. So in July was the first time that I used my over 100 degrees Fahrenheit color, which is this hot pink. You can see, I guess I'm going to put needle stoppers on just in case. Not that I think the stitches are going to go anywhere, but just in case. So this bright pink is my over 100 degree color. The coral is the 90 to 99 color. The light pink is the 80 to 89 color. And then that purple actually means that it got down to between 70 and 79 degrees Fahrenheit, which it hasn't done much recently. It happened one day in July that we were actually home. The rest of these July days where it happened in the very beginning, we were still on our road trip. So that doesn't really count, does it? It's instead of it being a temperature blanket for a single location, which I know is what a lot of people do, this is a temperature blanket for, it's like a day in the life kind of temperature blanket. So it's wherever I was that day, which was kind of hard on our road trip. So I either picked where we were at the peak of the day or where we were the longest that day, depending on if it was like a travel day or a day where we were only a few places. I'm still enjoying this. Like I said, it is giant, but I am on the decreases. So the excavation blanket pattern, if you're not familiar with it, there are no ends to weave in because all of your ends become the fringe on the blanket. So that made it nice for a temperature blanket because it meant no matter how often I had to change colors, there was never going to be an excessive number of ends to weave in. No weaving in at all. But once you start the decreases, you flip and your ends, your fringe is on the other side. So you can see July 2nd is the midpoint of the year. you can see where I began my decreases. So my fringe has flipped to the other side. So you can see that this is how much I've done since the decreases have started. It is starting to feel like the rows are going faster, even just 1 month into the decreases. So that gives me hope for being able to catch up in the next month or two, maybe. Although I'm going to get behind even more because next week we are going to the Walnut Valley Music Festival in Winfield, Kansas. And that's just, it's bluegrass music and we love to go and camp and I'm looking forward to it. But I'm not taking this giant project with me and its big box of 11 colors because I keep them all lined up in a row. It's just, it can't go with us. It's too big. So I know I'll get another few days behind then, but hopefully have a little bit of time to catch up with it after we get back. But it is coming along. It is beautiful. My youngest is already asking me when he's going to be able to use it. And I have hopefully, knock on wood, committed to him being able to use it as soon as I finish it on January 1st. Hopefully, because I should be able to put on the last 2-stitch row and bind it off on January 1st. I may go through and do some more fancy fringe tying because you tie the fringe in a square knot. And what I would like to do is lay it out and do where you tie 1/2 of each fringe to its neighbor and then go back and tie it again to itself. And you almost create this lattice with the fringe. I also feel like that way, if one square knot came undone in the wash for any reason, there are redundancies there and nothing would unravel. Because I've done this in acrylic to make it dog and kid friendly, to make it washing machine friendly, to hopefully last for a while because it is a huge undertaking. I have already bought the light pink again twice, and I'm thinking and I've bought the coral again once, and I'm hoping to make it through without having to buy a second of the dark hot pink, but I'm thinking I'll end up having to buy another of the light pink again. I am looking forward to weighing this when this project is done and seeing how many hundreds of grams of yarn have gone into this giant blanket. But it's going to be beautiful and I really love it so far. So I don't know, that's my temperature blanket based on the excavation blanket pattern. And I probably won't do this particular one again, even though I loved it. I think that next year, instead of a temperature blanket, I'm going to concentrate on another kind of blanket. And I'm considering the puzzle blanket by Stephen West. Is it the puzzle box blanket? I don't remember. He has a shawl and a blanket, and I was thinking I might do the blanket with a bunch of my minis. So I don't know, thinking about that. I do like having a blanket project on the needles that isn't feeling high pressure. Speaking of no pressure blankets, I am so glad to be able to share my Sweet Shop blanket with you all now. It's a mess because it rides around in the car. So let's just start off with that, okay? It rides around in the car because I tend to work on it during my kids' gymnastics because they over air condition the crap out of that place. And it is so cold that I need something on my legs, but it's so hot outside that I don't want to wear long pants going to and from. So that's a lot of buildup. Anyway, Laura Penrose of Penrose Knits released the Sweet Shop blanket on September 1st. It was a secret test knit over the summer, and it was so hard not to talk about it because this blanket, you guys, is so much fun to knit. My foundation square, so I'm showing it to you upside down of how it was knit. My foundation square was this purple. I once again opted to knit in acrylic at a worsted weight gauge. The pattern is written for DK or fingering weight held double. But I talked to Laura because it's really not a pattern where gauge matters that much. And said, I have this bin of scraps that I would like to use. And she said that was great and that I could do that. And so a lot of it is worsted or Aran. So years ago, when I was mainly just crocheting, I used to make baby blankets and Afghans for like every person I knew who had a baby, got married, whatever. Even when I started knitting, I was still doing that. So a lot of those blankets, because they were for non-fiber artists, they were made from acrylics that I purchased mostly at Michael's. I lived in California at the time, and Michael's was the closest thing for me. So a lot of the leftovers that I still have in a giant tub that I haven't yet donated someplace are worsted weight acrylic scraps. And some of them from like those giant pound of love type skeins. But anyway, Laura thought that was great. And I said, I'm going to use colors that coordinate with my bedroom, which is mostly blues and aquas. And I've got a few light pink accents and a few purple accents in here now. But this blanket ultimately is going to be to drape on the back of this chair and to be my cozy blanket for when I'm watching TV and knitting, and just generally being cozy in my own room in the winter. So this is my foundation square. I'll turn it so that you can see. So you start with a foundation square in her pattern, and then the pattern tells you how to add a right square, a left square, and a middle square. And you build using the right square, left square, and middle square as you keep going, and you make the blanket as many squares wide and as many squares tall as you want your blanket to be. It's completely customizable, and the pattern even comes with a coloring page, which I'm thrilled with. I was hand drawing my own coloring sheet as I went, so when she decided to include that in the pattern, I was very excited. I'm, of course, in the middle of a square, and it would take me too long to finish it to get it to where I could show it to you, because each square does take me a little bit of time. But here is what I have so far for my Sweet Shop blanket. And I will insert some pictures because it's so hard to show a full-size blanket on camera. But you can see that I'm using different shades of light blue, light greeny colors. I've got like a mint here, purples, some cream and white squares. I even have some different textures. So the pink is actually an alpaca acrylic blend, and there's a white boucle acrylic type fuzziness happening a couple of places. So it's not all the same texture. The gauge isn't even exact. I was planning on continuing to build up and away from the purple and leave it as the foundation, like the end on one side. But I think I ended up off gauge or picking up too many stitches or somehow getting off on my gray square. And it just doesn't seem quite like the others when I lay it out. It's almost like it's too tall. So I may have to add squares around it just to get it to lay right and not look funny on that edge. This pattern is so clever because the edge is actually, if you don't mess it up like I did, the edge is actually super nice and you don't have to put a border on it, but there are instructions included for an I-cord border if you want one. I haven't decided if I want one. It would be one way to maybe contain the wonky of the one side, but I think I'm just going to add squares around it to make it come back. And if it puckers a little bit, it puckers. Like I said, this is for my bedroom. It's for me. Ultimately, it's just about having the colors I want and a washable, dog and kid friendly blanket to have in my room and be cozy. Like, I don't know, I'm very excited about this. And it was so hard to keep a secret because it just knits up so pretty. And I've been working on it off and on all summer. I mean, we've had vacations and stuff and I have not taken it with me, but I'm not rushing it, but I do kind of want it for cozying up under in the fall. But for now, it is a great take with me to the kids' gymnastics project because I can cover up under it. The instructions are so easy to follow. Like, eventually you just memorize what you're doing on the squares and you can just keep going. I always take the white with me because the white is in every square. And then I usually in my bag just have the next 1 or 2 contrast colors. And I rotate those out so that I'm not carrying around like a giant bag of contrast colors. Right now, it's got a bunch in it because I grabbed them all from the car and there's all this yarn barf. But I mostly try and keep it contained into just a little canvas tote. One of the next contrast colors is this purple, which is different from the purple that's already in there. And then, oh, it's not in this bag. I have this that was the alpaca acrylic blend, also in a cream, so I'm going to use that. And it's exciting, first of all, to be using up all of this scrap yarn that has been sitting in tubs in my craft room forever. So between this blanket, which is using like most of the pastels, and then the hats that we are making for all of my friends, all of my kids' friends, which is using more of the bright colors and darker, moodier colors and things. Between all of that, the stash diving and the using up of stuff that I've just had sitting around has felt really good. And speaking of stash diving and stash that's been sitting around for a long time, I do have a new cast on. I cast on the Braided Bum Hugger by Knit-O-Tude. Let me see if I can show you the picture without showing you the pattern. Yes, I can. So it is just like a shrug, basically, like a giant shrug that is supposed to go from your neck past your bum. It is, however, one size. So that past your bum measurement depends. And she's a very size inclusive designer, but this was one of her very early patterns, and I'm not sure if she'll ever go back and add sizes, but it's super easy to modify because it is knit back and forth. You go across, like, so you could just add stitches because that would add length at your cast on. So I am using, this is very exciting because this has been in stash since, I don't even remember, 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. I am using Debbie Bliss alpaca silk that I bought at Ava's Needleworks. I'm sure I bought it on sale because there is no way, as a poor theater tech, that I was buying 20 balls of alpaca silk. If I said DK, it's not. It's the Aran. This is the alpaca silk Aran. There's no way I was buying this full price, 20 balls of it, on what I was making back then and living in California. Like, no. I'm sure it was 40 or 50% off, and that's why I got it. At the time, I still wore colors like this, but I don't know how it's showing up on camera. This is a very olive green in person, or an olive toned gray. It's very hard to tell. It kind of shifts depending on the light. I took a picture of it and it looked blue in the picture, but it is not at all in person. So depending on how it's showing up, it's a very olive toned green or gray, depending on how you see it. But I had 20 balls of this in stash, and I don't wear that color anymore, and I didn't know what to do with it. And it was one of those things where I was just like, I would think of something and then be like, no. And also back then I didn't know as much about fiber types. And now I know that, like, alpaca doesn't have any bounce back. It doesn't hold its shape on its own at all. It has no structure of its own. It's just drapey. So I figured drapey is good for this giant oversized shrug. And I went ahead and I am holding, I'm sorry if these clink, I am using metal needles because I think these might be the only size 17 needles I have. The pattern calls for 19s, but as a loose knitter, 19s is giant. So I am knitting it on size 17 needles. And like I said, you're casting on at the side edge and you're knitting it back and forth going across. So there is a lot of purling, which slows me down a bit. Also, I have found that I knit much slower on super giant needles. Is that normal? I feel like that's normal because you have to move a whole lot more to make it do stuff. Anyway, so this is what I have so far. So you're just going back and forth, doing the cables that create the border, and then at the end, you will sew it up in such a way that it creates the armholes. Yeah, loving it so far. Did I say I'm holding the yarn triple? I am holding it triple to create enough bulk because this calls for a super bulky yarn. I believe the pattern calls for Lion Brand Thick and Quick, and this is so luxurious compared to Lion Brand Thick and Quick. And I know it's going to be super drapey and not at all structured, but I feel like that's okay for just a shrug that you're just going to throw on. It's meant to drape down your back. Hoping it won't stretch out too much since I am holding it triple. I don't know. I think it's great so far, and I hope she likes it. And I can't decide if I should give it to her for her birthday in October or if I should wait and keep it for Christmas. This was $8 a ball if I had paid full price for it back in 2005 or 2006. And just being conservative, I used 2006 as an estimate. And I did the conversion to today's dollars. So in US dollars, $8 in 2006 would be $12.13 in today's dollars. So if I paid full price for the yarn, and if I'd bought it in today's dollars, there's like $260 worth of yarn going into this. And when I first did that math, I was like, because that's a lot, especially to just like give my sister, right? I mean, she's good for it. She's very good to her clothes and she's knit worthy and whatever. But that's a lot. But I'm sure I paid half price for it at least. And also, I just don't wear this color anymore. So to get 20 balls of yarn that have been sitting in stash for however many years that is. So that's what, 17 years in stash? It's a lot of years in stash. To get that out of stash and into a project that it actually looks beautiful in. Even my husband commented on how soft and squishy the yarn is, especially knit up triple. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about getting that out of stash. Now, there are some acquisitions this time, and I know there haven't been for a while. Oh goodness, if you can hear snuffling, my dog is moving around and having a big sigh and whatever. But anyway, so that is the Braided Bum Hugger by Knit-A-Tude. I have a bunch of her patterns, and the only one that I had actually done before was the Easy Eyelet Yoke cardigan, and then I test knit her even easier eyelet yoke pullover in bulky weight that I made for my daughter. So I'm finally getting around to, I already had the Braided Bum Hugger pattern, so I didn't have to buy that, and I had all this yarn in stash, and I just thought, let's just do it. And I've only been working on this for 3 days, maybe. Maybe this is day 4, but I haven't put any hours into it today. It'll be my evening knitting. And I'm past the halfway point. So if I can have this finished and then get it sewn and like set aside and not have any pressure near my sister's birthday or Christmas, whatever I decide. I'm kind of leaning towards her birthday because I don't think I'm making anyone else something this big and fancy for Christmas, because that would be a lot of knitting. But if I can have that done and not be like rushing toward a deadline, that would be great. So I have one other new cast on. I've not worked on my Christmas stocking since the last time I podcast, so I'm not going to grab that. The whole reason I haven't worked on it is really dumb, but it was in the bedroom instead of being in the kitchen where I'd been working on it, because I was working on it before everyone else woke up in the morning, and it needed scrap yarn put in for the, it has a short row heel that's kind of like a forethought heel, which is similar to an afterthought heel, except instead of picking up stitches and cutting into your yarn, you knit a piece of waste yarn in, and then you go back and pick the stitches up and pull the waste yarn out. And so you don't have to cut anything, but you also don't have those extra ends to weave in. So that is my preferred way to do that, is to do a forethought heel as opposed to a true afterthought heel where you have to cut into it. And the pattern had that already in there. It's not something that I had to like add. I just needed to go find scrap yarn. So I haven't done that. So I haven't worked on my Christmas stocking, but I still feel like there's time for that. But I am working on another kid hat. Once again, we went stash diving. This time, the stash diving was a little nicer than the old acrylics. This is a Southern Skeins yarn from when I was doing her club, and I was getting 2 skeins of everything, and so that almost made it harder to decide what to do, because 2 skeins is enough to do like a tank or like a very loose t-shirt. You can do a ranunculus, you can do things like that. But so like 2 is enough that if I wanted a garment really, really out of it, I could make it work. But it's too few to like do a true sweater, and it was too much to want to grab to do hats and socks, because I felt like I was breaking up the pair, which is really dumb. But this is not my color. I mean, I love yellow, but this is like a bright gold yellow and like a John Deere green, and then like a muted, more like, I don't know. I don't even know what to call that green. Anyway, it's 2 different greens. One of them is like a greeny browny color, and one is more a bright grassy green. And it's just, there's a lot going on here. So I knew it wasn't going to be a color that I would wear. It's all tangled, guys. But I also knew it wasn't like a color I really wanted for one of my kids. Because like sometimes when I get the club colorways, or used to, I don't anymore, the color wouldn't be for me, but I would totally be like, that is exactly what I want to use for my son. Or that's exactly what I want to use for my daughter. Like immediately, or my mom, or, you know, somebody. So a lot of times I would look at a color and be like, I know who I'm going to use that for. But this one, I just didn't. It's just so bright. But hats for kids can be bright and fun. And so this one is going to be for a little boy, you know, like 2nd or 3rd grader type age. And so I've started with a twisted rib brim, and I don't even remember the name of the pattern, so I'll insert it here because I just have it brought up on my computer. I've just been searching random patterns that were already in my library for hats that had kid sizes, so that I can try a variety of patterns while I'm making all these different hats with scrap yarn. So I went for one written for a DK weight or fingering held double, And like I said, I'm just doing a twisted rib right now. I love the look of a twisted rib. I think it's really pretty. I like that I'm able to hold this yarn double, so instead of just getting the little stripes of variegation, it's kind of marling it, but it's still also coming out. I don't know. We'll see how it ends up pooling in the end. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but I actually do like it so far. It is fun to knit. I don't want to wear it, but I think it'll be fun for a kid who does want bright yellow and green for a hat. And I'm trying to get ahead on some of those hats, like have some just done and ready. We have another birthday this weekend, and if you've been around a really long time, you might have watched an episode a while back where I did a whole confessional on this bin of basically finished projects where the ends had not been woven in, like a whole bin. And so I spent an entire day or 2 days seeing how many projects I could get truly finished and done and out of that bin and just done. Yeah. And I don't remember how many, 13, 14, something like that, that I actually did get done. I need to revisit that bin, which is at this point mostly dishcloths and 2 felted purses from a million years ago when those were actually a thing that were never sewn together. I wonder if I sewed them together, if they'd be a thing for like my daughter's age kids. I don't know. They're in middle school. Anyway, I need to trim the ends, but this is one of the things that I had actually gotten around to weaving in the ends after my confessional video, and it is just a knot headband that had come out too small for a grown-up. But we have another kid's birthday party to go to this weekend, and it's a girl, and she has really pretty hair, and I think that this would look really nice on her. So I'm going to trim the ends, put a SomerKnits tag on it, and wrap it and say, we have a gift for the birthday party, all done. And so that's kind of the thing I'm looking forward to with working ahead on some of these different hats. I want to get to the point where I'm not stressed about finishing it in time for the party. Because like I was sewing together that fawn hood the morning of the party. I cut those buttons off and re-sewed them or the first 2 or 3 anyway, at least 4 times. I finally decided that them not being exactly perfectly straight was a design feature. I was just going with it because I didn't like the buttonholes on that pattern, first of all. I know I'm bouncing everywhere. I didn't like the buttonholes in the fawn hood pattern. I thought the buttonholes in some of her other patterns were better. But because of that, I was afraid of it being hard for the recipient to button and unbutton quickly, because there were 6 buttons down the cowl neck part of that hood. And it's so easy just to slip it on over your head anyway, that my advice to her was just to leave it buttoned and just take it on and off over her head, because she wasn't the kind of person who was going to be fussy about it going on and off over her hair. And I just figured fussing with the buttons and faffing about with those was going to be a thing. So it's just like, just leave them buttoned, pull it on and off, call it good. I almost forgot about another recent cast on, new since last time, and almost a finished object. So close. On vacation, we went to Great Smoky Mountain Spinnery in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I'll put the name of the yarn store. I don't remember. Anyway, Smoky Mountain Spinnery. We were staying at Great Smoky Mountain National Park, and we went to the yarn store in town. I talked about it before. I was overwhelmed and couldn't pick, and so my son chose the Knitted Wit DK in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park colorway. And I'm pretty sure I showed it when it was still a Hank, but he wanted a Musselburgh hat, and I took a 2-day OSHA 10 class a couple weeks ago, and I needed something to work on that I could focus on the class, but also like keep my hands busy. So I started a Musselburgh and had gotten past the increases to where I was just knitting in the round. Since it's DK weight, these are, I want to say that they're size 6 or 7 needles. I probably could have even gone up another needle size because it's not quite as long as I want, or I could have, I opted for the adult medium, even though it's for my son because he wanted it to be a sharing hat for everybody in the house. And so it's not as long or as floppy as most of my other Musselburghs. I don't think I've done a DK weight one before. So anyway, this is what's left of the yarn. I have been knitting on it and weighing it, and knitting on it and weighing it, because once I get down to just 10 grams left, I will do the decreases, but I don't want to start them too early. So still going. It just means that I don't work on it out and about because I want to be able to weigh it. And then when I do soak it and block it, I am going to stretch it lengthwise and pin it out so that it dries a bit longer, so that hopefully I can get a fold into the brim. At least when my son's wearing it. It may be more of a straight beanie for the rest of us, but we'll see. I love how the colors came out though. It's not my usual colors, you know, it's dark and moody, but there's no, other than like at the very beginning, you know, where you get the pooling because of the increases and stuff, there's no massive pooling. Everything's broken up really nicely. And a lot of, it's just scattered, and I love how it came out. So I'm super happy with this. It was great class time knitting. I love a good Musselburgh hat. But usually they take me forever because I just knit on them when I need something that I absolutely don't have to look at and don't have to think about. So out with friends or movie night or whatever. And so to knock this out in a day was awesome. So there's a benefit for DK weight yarn. I think when we were there was only DK and fingering. I don't know if the Knitted Wit does sport weight, because I probably won't do a DK again for a Musselburgh. But I knew I didn't want to knit a fingering weight one necessarily this fall while I was knitting all other things, because fingering weight ones take me a while. So I think that I would go for sport weight if I had the choice. But it's a DK weight Musselburgh. It's going to be cozy. It's going to be great when it's cold, and hopefully my son loves it because it is what he requested. And I'm really bad about mentioning bags, so I'm just keeping it in a Tom Bin bag that my husband got me a while ago. It is one of their yarn bags. It goes inside their larger knitting bag. So I've got 3 of these clear bottom yarn bags that go in a larger knitting tote to keep your yarn separate. Keep it from tangling. I keep whole projects in there typically. But I know you can just put the separate balls in them and cinch them and put them down in the knitting tote. So now I think that was it for current whips. Yeah. So before I started that braided bum hugger, I swatched this lovely Knit Picks Wonder Fluff that I got for Christmas last year. And I almost got Gauge for the Amapola cardigan, which is by Claudia from Unit Toronto. And it's a bulky weight, fluffy, I don't know if the pattern's where I can reach it. It's a bulky weight, fluffy cardigan that's Not very long. I don't want to say it's truly cropped, but it's not very long. Buttons down the front. It's just got kind of loose, puffy looking sleeves. They do come in again at the cuff though. They're not just like flared and open. Anyway, I was swatching for that because I love this color so much, and I had thought about doing a chunky souffle by Laura of Penrose Knits, and I would have had to hold it double, which is fine because that needs like a super bulky, and this is really just a bulky. But I thought that's going to be something that's pretty warm, and I'm only going to be able to wear it occasionally. Whereas a cardigan, you know, a good layering piece that I could wear a lot. I'm really in a cardigan state of mind this year, and I have been all year, even though I haven't made very many. I've wanted to. I have all these cardigans queued. I have a desire to knit cardigans. So I swatched for it, but when I went back and read the pattern again, they're holding a fluffy yarn like this. They're doing drops air with a silk mohair, and I was like, I didn't have a silk mohair in my stash that went with this, and I was like, instead of trying to match the color, let's go for a white, because there are flecks of white all throughout this because of the way it's made. So why not go for a white silk mohair, and that way this color can stay the color it is and just white fluff. It might tone it down a little bit, but that's okay. And so I ordered that from Knit Picks on like August 28th. I looked around for other white silk mohairs. There was nothing locally. I checked both Get Stitchin' and Knit Stars. No decent white silk mohair. I do have some white Surrey alpaca, but that's not the fluff I was looking for. I really wanted a silk mohair. I checked price points. There's nowhere that I could get the Filcolana Tilia from without paying like overseas shipping. So ultimately I just decided to go with the Knit Picks. So I ordered the white Knit Picks Aloft. It's still not here. I ordered it on the 28th. Tracking hasn't updated in a million years until finally this morning, but it still doesn't give me an estimated delivery date. Pain in the butt. But anyway, dying to cast that on. Probably the next cast on as soon as that yarn gets here. But in the meantime, something else I ordered only a few days ago that's already here. I got sucked in by the hype, and I am going to try to do the Stephen West MCAL. Now I didn't want to pay the overseas shipping to get an official MCAL kit because I don't really need the tote or the pen, as cool as they are. So I looked at also didn't want to commit like hundreds of dollars to it because I don't know if I'll finish. I don't know if I'll love it. I don't usually like geometric things, and it is called the Geo Gradient. I'm hoping the fact that it's a gradient means I end up enjoying it. I do not know what's happening outside. We have a gravel driveway, and I thought I heard somebody in it, but I don't see anyone. Oh well. Anyway, so I looked on the website. Sorry for all the crinkling. I tend to bag everything up, and up in my knitting room, I have boxes and boxes of cedar balls and cedar sachets, and I will end up stuffing some of those in every bag also. But I looked at all of the Holstgarn kits that had been assembled that he was advertising, and then I went to the Yarnery, which is a store in the US, and assembled the kit myself, basically, but using his as a guideline. So I ended up with, my light color is Candy Floss. This is all Holst Super Soft, which I've never worked with before, so I wanted to try it. It's definitely rustic in the cake, but I've heard that it softens up beautifully with washing. So I may do the swatch that he advises to see how your colors play together, which is just a little stripe swatch in garter stitch. I don't really care if I get gauge because I don't care if it comes out a little big or a little small. That does not matter to me. Anyway, my second color is allium, I think is how it's said. My third color is peony. And my fourth color is comfrey, and it's gorgeous. So the only one that I was like, about is the allium. Came more muted in person than the pictures looked online. But I think when you stack it up with the others, that it does actually look right in the gradient. I can't hold these in such a way that you can really see their fronts, I don't think. No. I'm just going to drop everything. That was a nice try, though. Nice thoughts. Anyway, so I am going to give the Stephen West MCAL a try. This will be my first time trying to keep up with the MCAL. I always tell myself I'm too busy with Christmas knits and things, and then I watch everybody else working on theirs and I get super jealous. So I just thought, okay, if I can make it more affordable, I will give it a try. So by assembling the kit myself, I think it came out just over like $50, as opposed to paying I think it came out to closer to $70 plus shipping if I had bought like the actual MCAL kit, and I don't remember what shipping was, but it would have come out to a lot more to buy the same yarn and have it shipped over with a tote bag and a pen and a label. So here is my kit for the Stephen West MCAL, and because I'm a sucker for free shipping and I've got this goal of using all these stash yarns, what did I do with it? Okay, so I'll preface this by saying I had this yarn in stash, and it was from a swap I did. And if you've been around a long time, you might remember it. So when I did the swap, one of the hanks was already balled up and the other one was still in a hank. And this is Wishbone Romani 100% Merino. There's no yardage listed on the tag. It looks like a fingering weight single. It's 100 grams at least. Might be a little more. I'm hoping it's at least 400 yards. I'm hoping together they're 800 yards. But anyway, this and this are the same. It's just that this one is a cake and this one is still a hank. But I wanted to use them. They're colorful, they're fun, they're interesting. I like colorful and fun and interesting. And I thought, you know, if I found something to hold with them, they could be a lento. Now, the way this one is wound up in the hank, it looks very red heavy. That's just because that's what has ended up on the outside. The inside, as soon as you move, all that red is not red. So it's more like this. So I ordered a couple of balls of Holstgarn Titicaca in this light pink, and there is that light pink in various places in this yarn. I know it seems weird, but I'm gonna try it together and see if I like it. The Titicaca is 100% pure thin alpaca, and it does have a halo to it, if you can see that. And I think from watching other podcasts and seeing people work with it, that the halo blooms even more after blocking. So I'm going to try this for a lento. If it doesn't seem to be lento appropriate, I will try another 800 yard type project like the Tolsta or something. But I think it will be a good lento. So that's one of the things about trying to knit from my stash is that there are so many things in stash that I'm like, that would be great if I had something to hold with it. So when I am buying things, I am trying, it's not always the case, but I'm trying to be mindful about, okay, if I bought this, if I'm gonna buy something, is it like something I can use with something I already have in order to get stuff out of stash? So I did also buy, I know, lots of crinkling because I've already bagged everything up to protect it from critters. We are having a very, very bad critter season this summer. They're awful. I can't even express how awful it is. But I bought 3 of this blue because it is an alternative to holding Knit-O with mohair. I thought might be to try this. So I have 3 balls of this. If I don't love it with the Knit-O, I have another fingering weight yarn that I think that it would be great with. Otherwise, I'll just hold on to it for a while. But I really think it's gonna pair well with the Knit-O, and I'm hoping to do like a textured knit and maybe not lose so much to the fuzz of silk mohair, but still have that strength that is lent to it by having that thin, what am I trying to say? Lace weight yarn to hold with the Knit-O, so it'll still lend it some strength and maybe some stitch definition. I don't know. I gotta swatch it and see. But it was a good color. It matches some colors I have. Speaking of matching colors I had bought the Knit-O birthday blend yarn last spring. Plates of the Knit-O in their birthday blend, which had all of these different colors in it. I don't even remember. There were blues, purples, reds, yellows, all these colors blended in, and from far away, the yarn kind of looks like this marled gray, and then up close, it's got tons of color in it. Since I was ordering the Knit Picks Aloft for the Amapola cardigan, I also ordered a loft in a very light lavender to hold with that birthday yarn, because to me it looks like an almost purple gray from a distance, and I thought I should pick one of the colors in that blend to pull forward using a mohair or fluff of some sort. So I decided to try a light lavender with it. I'm going to swatch it when it gets here, hopefully, and see if pulling the purple forward makes it, I don't know, so that you can see that there's color to it a little bit more. I think pulling the purple forward will be good. So I'm going to try that. So I forgot to cover some of my acquisitions from Fiber Christmas in July. This is very acquisition heavy, and I'm sorry, I haven't been acquisition heavy this year because I'd done a really good job of not buying for a while. But as I'd said before, I was still going to purchase yarn on vacation and at fiber festivals. Like, I wasn't on a total yarn ban, yarn diet, whatever people want to call them, because that just makes you want it more. But I did go with a cash budget to Fiber Christmas in July, and I ended up getting 4 skeins of Nitty Gritty Fiber Arts Bamboo Sport in the color Hawaiian Hibiscus. So it's 50% merino wool, 50% bamboo. It is gorgeous. I can't wait to skein it up. And this will be for a drapey summer tee. I'm actually going to see if I can get gauge on the feldspar tee. And if I can't, then I'll pick another summer tee, because I have 4 skeins. Each skein has 262 yards. So I've got definitely enough for a summer tee. I would love to do the feldspar tee in it because it's so nice and drapey. That 50% bamboo just makes it shiny and beautiful and wonderful. But I also really enjoyed chatting with the guy from Nitty Gritty Fiber Arts. He was so sweet, and I just had such a good time at that festival. If you're ever in Oklahoma the last weekend in July, you should hit up Fyre Christmas in July. One more acquisition. I don't remember if I showed this the last podcast, so I'm going to show it again. I got one skein of Glinda the Good Witch in Loft Surrey Silk, 75% baby Surrey alpaca, 25% silk, 460 yards to 50 grams. So it is a pink with some purple leaning spots in it. Definitely a pink though. Some spots that lean creamier, some spots that lean more of a purpley pink. But I got this to do the lace and fade boxy. So I've had these skeins of pinks and almost leaning towards purple burgundy-ish colors. Anyway, this line of single skeins that I had put together that are in a bag. And I kept thinking I was gonna do like a So Faded or the Le Pouf cardigan, and I still want to do the Le Pouf cardigan, but there wasn't enough yardage in the ones I'd lined up to do the Le Pouf. But there is enough yardage to do a lace and fade boxy by Joji Locatelli. And all I needed was a fluff to tie them together. And so I am tying my pinks together, and I will show them all when I'm ready to actually swatch for and cast on the project. But I was so good. I bought things with intention. I bought this single skein of Surrey alpaca to tie together my pinks to do a lace and fade boxy, which is, I believe, on my Make 9, the lace and fade boxy. I love the look of it. I love how you can just find all of these coordinating skeins in your stash, grab one fluff to tie them all together, and just go. So that is my plan. That was the last acquisition, I promise. I know that was acquisition heavy and maybe a little bit chaotic, and I know I talked really fast in parts and my throat keeps drying out. Oh my goodness. That was a lot. I feel like I've been knitting a lot, but also like didn't have a ton to show for it. I think some of that is because I'm making all those hats and they're all for, you know, my kids' friends, and so those are disappearing before you guys get to see them. But I'm having fun with it. I love the gifting. I was already sent pictures from one of the kids' moms because they went on vacation to somewhere cold, and the kid actually took the hat and wore it a couple times on vacation. And so she sent me pictures, which is the best thing. I love when people send me pictures of their gift knits being used. Oh, I have fluff now on my nose. Yep. I don't know. Let me know if that's like a thing for you too. But I just get so much joy out of people being like, hey, look, I'm using the thing you gave me. I tell people that I gift things to, that I don't need them to write me a thank you note. Pictures are even better. I would prefer they send me a picture of whatever I gave them doing its thing than sit down and write me a thank you note. So anyway, life and book chat. Oh goodness. I didn't write down the books that I've read recently, and I am recording on the phone where my Libby app is. But I think when I last recorded that I was in the process of reading Remarkably Bright Creatures, which was excellent. I loved that book. And when I say reading, I'm mostly referring to audiobooks because I just get so busy, and I do have an e-reader. I can read and knit, but I listen to audiobooks when I'm driving, sometimes when I'm working and doing data entry. It just depends. Doing dishes, cooking dinner, all those things. So, Remarkably Bright Creatures, excellent book. Tore through it, loved it. I might look up other books by that author, although I've heard at least one of them is semi-disturbing, so I'm going to pay attention to the subject matter before choosing a book. But that one was excellent. After that, I read House of Hollow. Just a sec. After that, I read House of Hollow, and I enjoyed that read, but I'm still not sure how I felt about it. It was interesting. I can't remember where I got the recommendation, but I mean, definitely worth a read. I just can't decide how I feel about the ending. I still can't decide. After that, I read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and that was another one. I'll have put the authors' names on the bottom of the screen because I can't remember them all off the top of my head. Anyway, that book was interesting. And I tore through that pretty quickly too. It took me a minute to get into, but it actually was really good. But then because I had kept reading these books that were a little bit heavy, I am currently reading like Murder on the Poet's Walk or something, whatever the most recent Ellery Adams, maybe it's not even the most recent, but my library didn't have a copy of it until recently, and I put a hold on it and it was my turn. So it's like Murder on the Poet's Walk or something, and it's an Ellery Adams book theme murder mystery. Nothing like, not heavy at all, easy read kind of thing. So not a high volume of books since the last recording, although I mean it's only been 2 weeks and that's 4 books. That's not bad. Anyway, still reading. Kids are still loving school. School is good. I don't know what else there is to say life chat wise. If you're going to be in Winfield, Kansas for the Walnut Valley Music Festival, let me know. Sometimes there's a yarn vendor, so I will totally be checking out the vendor areas to see what's what this year. A lot of times I come home with a new piece of dishware for the kitchen. There's a lot of potters that come, and sometimes yarn dyers, so we'll see. But I don't really have anything big for life chat. It's only been a couple of weeks. I'm glad to try to get back to more regular filming and just reconnect with everyone. The summer kind of gets away from me, so let me know what you're working on, and if you made it this far, thank you so much. This was probably kind of a long one again because I got a bit chatty. I don't know, I went kind of fast, but I feel like I got a bit chatty, and there was all those acquisitions at the end. But anyway, I'd love to know what you're working on, what you're up to. I appreciate you joining me so much. Take care and have a wonderful whatever. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.